34 minutes, people. It is. I'll get straight to the main points. Are two, Donald Trump, despite him being erratic, stochastic, he changes his mind 3 times a day. He seems really willing to make war. Against Iran, right? But the most important point is not that. I saw a river, didn't I? Elizabeth, who worked with Dilma Vanya Rousseff at the BRICS Bank, New Development Bank, and made contacts, right? Communist, huh? He made contacts there with important people connected to the party and even the stagecoach. And he categorically stated that if necessary, China enters the war directly. If necessary, China will enter the war. And the Russian Federation also seems exposed. I don't need to say that if that happens, well, then we will have a confrontation between troops from China, Russia, and Iran. Against, I don't know what of the United States, because the United States cannot afford to take troops to Iran. This is a first point that we have that I think makes clear. The United States is not in a position to send troops to Iran. Iran is 10,000 kilometers from the United States. The United States basically relies on top doors, which are very easy targets for static hypersonic missiles, right? Are very easy targets for static hypersonic missiles. And I cannot conceive how the United States of America would land troops in Iran. Truly, I do not conceive the United States of America landing troops in Iran. I'm not saying they don't have courage. What I'm saying is that they don't have the means. And it's scary for us to get to this point where we're discussing this, right? Good night. It's scary for us to get to this point of being discussing this. But the current state of affairs in this about Donald Trump is the United States of America willing attacking Iran. They can do it. They can attack, but they cannot invade because they have no troops. They have no means. What are they going to do? Are they going to get closer to Iran? In what way? That's the right way. So it's the American aircraft carriers. Of all the countries in the world, basically, after the invention of the missile and tactical personico, they are weapons of very questionable utility in the confrontation of powers of equal power. Then, considering the huge distance between the United States and Iran and considering the state of the art, from satellites today, from weapons and tactical personas. These days, no, there's no way. Iran is a country of 95 million inhabitants. It's a scale that we don't know. It's a country of 95 million inhabitants. Did the United States fail to invade Yemen? And actually, we are talking about the entire IOM. We are talking about the portion of the IM controlled by Al Ansarallah, which must be 20% of the Iranian population. It's not feasible. It is not conceivable that the United States of America can invade Iran. 95,000 inhabitants, almost 100,000 people. It's just a lot of people to beat. Imagine that it is obvious, it is evident that there is discontent in Iran against some things of the regime. We cannot deny this, nor does the Iranian government itself deny it, so much so that over time, in a careful way, he has been trying to make reforms. But to imagine that the Iranian population would welcome the Americans as liberators is stupid. Because that would never happen. It would never happen, not least because the United States is associated with the dictatorship of Cyrus Tapalev. So perhaps among the younger people who have no memory of what the T dictatorship was, fully supported by the United States of America, perhaps among the younger people, there is not as much clarity as it would be. A dominant North American angle on Iran, perhaps among younger portion of the population, there is no such clarity. But the bulk of the Iranian population would resist to the last man. And we're talking, let me ask artificial intelligence here. What was the population of Afghanistan, not Vietnam? What was the population of Vietnam in 1968? What was the population of North Vietnam in 1968? And what was that of the United States? So I'm going to start with A. With a simple question, what was the population of North Vietnam in 1968? What was the population of the United States? The population of the United States was 200 million inhabitants and North Vietnam was 20 million inhabitants. So the United States had a population 10 times larger than Vietnam and lost. The United States lost to a much poorer country. I'm going to add questions. What was it? OPB in the two countries on that date, we will put data, right? Let's put in data, because otherwise we will do that hollow analysis. Hoxha, huh? We usually see in the national press what the OPB of the two countries was on that date. We know that the United States at that date was 10 times more populous than Vietnam. The GDP of the United States at that time was 940 billion in current dollars, and Vietnam's GDP was 3 billion. So essentially it is. The United States was 300 times richer than Vietnam. So let's see just that, of course. Let's try to do it. We are not at the moment, after commenting on what is happening at this very moment, a conflict. But we are not in the time to be with Firullah. The United States in 1968 was 10 times more populous and 300 times richer. 300 times richer than Iran. Let's see the ratio. United States, Iran. What is the proportion today? And regarding Iran with in 1968, the US was 10 times more populous and 300 times richer than Iran. Today, let's see how the US stands in comparison to Iran. With the latest available data, considering purchasing power parity, what is the population and GDP of the two countries? We know that in 1968, the United States of America was 10 times more populous and 300 times richer. And Luz? So let's go to the latest available data. Iran is 90 million inhabitants and the United States 336 million. So the United States is 3.5 times more populous than Iran. Iran's OPB with the latest available data, 2024, is $1.8 trillion. And the United States, $28 trillion. So essentially, the United States is 15 times richer than Iran and 3.5 times more populous. In 1968, the difference was not 3.5 times more populous, it was 10 times more populous. The difference was not 15 times richer, it was 300 times richer, and the United States of America lost to Vietnam, which essentially fought with infantry. The Vetikogs beat Navy, Air Force. An army fighting solely infantry, right? Infantry. They had no anti-aircraft artillery, Air Force, Navy, or Marines. The United States had all of this now. In 2025, on the eve of the intensification of the World Cup, Iran has technologies that the United States does not have. It has much more artillery than the United States. The U.S. Navy is unable to operate off the Iranian coast. The only advantage the United States has is in aeronautics, but this advantage does not outweigh electronic warfare equipment or artillery equipment. So doing an objective analysis, whether the United States of America failed to beat the country 300 times poorer, like 15 times less populated because now it's multi-inferior technology, and that counted only infantry because now with the United States of America counting only in aeronautics being only 3.5 times more populous and only 15 times richer, fighting against the country that has a superior artilleryman. A superior army, because we don't have that. The army that has, I don't know how many millions, it doesn't matter how many troops the United States of America could put inside Iran. Only the Revolutionary Guard has 2.5 millions of men. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard alone has 2.5 million men, 700,000 of the regular army. How many men did the United States manage to put in there? Their navy, given that Iran possesses missiles and tactical personas and useless. So if we consider good night, camaraderie, if we consider the economic difference between the United States and Iran, and then we'll trade some points, shall we? Exactly the Barghiv militias. Let's touch on other points. Let's touch on the economic point. What is the external debt, the public debt, the deficit? Fiscal surpluses of both countries, because it's not just a confrontation between two armed forces. All war is fundamentally economic. So let's ask Comrade Psyche a few more things and we'll see how the economic situation of the two countries is. All right, let's start with external debt. Iran's external debt is $10,000, which is equivalent to 0.5% of Iran's GDP, 1% of Iran's GDP. The U.S. debt is 25 times greater. It's 25 trillion. That's 95% of the GDP of the United States. Iran's public debt is $300 billion, equivalent to 40% of GDP. That of the United States is $35 trillion. Today it is 37, which is equivalent to 123% of GDP. The trade balance. Iran has a surplus of 30 billion. The United States is a 1.4 trillion deficit. Let's repeat. Iran's trade surplus is 30 billion. The trade deficit of the United States of America is $1.4 trillion. Iran's fiscal result is a deficit of 5% of GDP. The U.S. fiscal result is a deficit of 6% of GDP. In short, there is not a single economic indicator in which the United States of America is better than Iran. In fact, on some of the indicators, the difference is thousands of times in favor of Iran. Good night, comrade. The difference is thousands of times in favor of Iran. So, the United States does not have technological conditions because it does not have missiles and tactical personnel. He has no way to get his army there, so he has no infantry, which means how is he going to occupy the country of 1,650,000 kilometers to inhabited by almost 100 million people? It is a complete and absolute delusion to believe or conviction. That the United States of America would have any chance of dominating Iran. Good night, man. You're very welcome. And I'm not talking, later the master leader is cheering. No, I'm not cheering. I'm appreciating, based on reality data, the United States is a deeply indebted nation with huge economic and fiscal deficits, which distributed its own industrial capacity and its own technological capacity. Just to give you an idea, we know that the population of the United States is 3.5 times that of Iran. So I'm going to ask another question. What number are formed by the two countries? Extensive. They're skirt professionals, right? Science, technologies, engineering, and mathematics. Remembering that the population of the United States is 3.5 times larger than that of Iran. So let's see what the name of this is informed by the two countries. Well, here we go. The United States of America graduates 600,000 Estons per year, plus 20% in biological and computer sciences. Iran trains 335,000 Eston per year, but 40% in engineering, right? That's the point. The United States has no capable military, no capable technology, no capable engineering. He's 10,000 miles away. He's indebted to the soul, to the marrow of North Americans. Good night, then. I'll tell you about the sequence about the nuclear facilities. Iran has a nuclear plant, but it did it in the best possible place, practically opposite the United Arab Emirates. If the United States bombs and pardons Iran's nuclear plant, the postponement essentially goes to Dubai. There was a comrade in the ex-doctor in the area who posted a study making it very clear that if the Iranian nuclear plant is bombed, the radiation will go essentially because of the direction of the winds. Of course, there will be something in Iran. But the bulk of the radiation went to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Panama, capital of Qatar, capital of Bahrain, and Doha, capital of Qatar. So the bulk of the radiation goes to the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Bahrain, Qatar, the radiation will destroy Dubai, right? Iran's only military emergency, Comrade Angelica, lies almost on the shores of the Persian Gulf. If it's destroyed, the radiation will leak out right to the other side of the Persian Gulf, hitting Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar. United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Manama, Doragiba are going to the bag. That's the point. That's the point. Iran was very clever in choosing the location of its nuclear power plant. If the United States or Israel destroys it, the Arabs will pay the price. And I doubt very much that the amount of billionaires from all the countries of the world who live in Dubai, or that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or that the emirs of the United Arab Emirates, that the King of Qatar, that the Sultan of Bahrain and that of Oman, that the King of Saudi Arabia is happy with the possibility of the United States contaminating their countries for 5,000 years, right? Exactly. So the big question is Donald the Goofy, not the duck. Is he really going to attack Iran? Is he really thinking about overthrowing the regime? Ana Valeria is good night. At least Donald is willing, right? Ma'am, I'm ready. There is a difference, comrade. A nuclear plant basically releases strontium, right? It basically releases strontium and radioactive odo. An enrichment station essentially frees Poland, but Iran's uranium enrichment situations are between 800 and 900 meters deep. There is no way to reach them. There is absolutely no way to reach them. There is no weapon in this world that can hit them. So the only thing the illegitimate state can do is bomb the plants that are above ground, which are civilians, comrade. In the case of radiation from nuclear reactors, it is 5,000 years, the estimated time for the entire South radiation. As the UAE is a very small country, Qatar is a very small country, and Bahrain is even smaller, they would have to be abandoned by the population itself. These three countries disappeared, Iran would not disappear, especially because the region where these air or nuclear teaching is basically uninhabited. Now, would three countries go off the map? No, there is no risk of reaching Brazil. For now, he's just talking, comrade. He's saying that next week he's going to attack Iran to destroy it. I believe what he's trying to do is intimidate Iran into signing a peace agreement with the State of Israel. But Iran has already made it abundantly clear, and every time the Iranian leadership comes out, it is clearer about this. That Iran will not stop attacking Israel as long as Israel does not surrender is considering that some U.S. bases are unoccupied because they have simply fled. The United States has 30,000 people in the Middle East, that is, against at least 3.5 million Iranians. Good night, buddy Alice. So, like that, I'm usually pretty calm. When I do my analyses, I avoid a dark tone. But we are talking for now about Iran and the United States. Let us consider what Comrade Elias Sabur said just today. If necessary, China enters directly into the war. Because China knows that the war is not against Iran. The war is against the People's Republic of China, with which Iran does a lot of business and on which China depends for oil supplies. I didn't see a friend in Valeria. It would be very kind of you to let me know, right? So if you find the BRICS against the BRICS, for sure to prevent change in the world order. But essentially, who is being targeted the most in this game is the People's Republic of China. They're lying, Wendell. Whoever is saying this is lying. Jabor said this today, comrade. Let me see if I can send it to you. Oh, wait, let me see if I can send it to you. To everyone here on the channel, right? The cut, wait a minute, will make a sound as soon as China is positioning itself in relation to Israel's attack on Iran. Amid growing threats to Iranian sovereignty, the Chinese panorama beyond diplomatic statements, I think so. Yeah, I didn't have to eat the bill yesterday. Then I passed some things. Why? Because it's the backdrop of Operation Not Chile.
It's the Chinese intelligence, the friends they are having in China, and friends who work in state councils, including those who work, right, also for a Chinese freedom movement, and what happens live, right? It is as it is, of course, but against China, indirectly, the strategic target is China. So today, for example, the word of one side that speaks it so openly in the Chinese power is the following: the money cannot fall because it is not because there is this risk.
They themselves provide the information first to one for you here, friends who work within the posteriorizados, okay? And they exert a lot of influence on the Chinese leadership from the companies. Halftime is what they're calling the community that I can't, you know?
So I believe that we are going to do something, I don't know what, but if there is this number of conscious people among them, it's because something could happen to him. That is, he can't be on top of shooting him, right?
Is what the Chinese menu of options would be. You believe that money, right? That Iran needs a lot of money. I mean, under what circumstances? With an emergency credit, in a way, with Iran, with the emergency spirit, I can provide Russia, right? I think that's the point of this, a view only of Mr. Russia's work, in which money comes in, resources comes in, and Russia comes in with products, in this case, weapons, right? So I immediately think, is that it? That is, China is handing over the financial power to Iran to seek massively. It's a Russian breastfeeding. That's how I think today and tomorrow. It may be with more elements that I will go through in the day, at night, as I think that's the decision. I just work as it is. Which is, I believe it's for you to hear. I believe it was for you to hear, right? I believe it was enough for you to hear. But if you want it again, it's here. So it's very clear. It's very oven for the world. The interview he gave to Bruno Altman is very clear. Very clear. Good night, people. It is very clear that Neither Russia nor China will accept the fall of Iran. Neither of them is willing to accept the fall of Iran, and they will go to the last consequences if necessary. Right? It's very clear. Without a shadow of doubt, I see the bulls, right? The celebrities of that Megatronic, those assholes who keep talking shit on X, are Russia abandoned Iran, China abandoned Iran. These guys, with all due respect to the imbeciles, with all due respect to people with cognitive disabilities, to asthma, these guys are the cretins. They are not just uninformed and stupid people, they are people who misinform and make people stupid. Listening to these types of people, reading these types of people makes everyone more stupid. I believe that, in fact, as we are at war, we have to be less and less tolerant against the sixth columnist, against people who spread disinformation and discouragement. We have to start facing reality as it is posing itself. We are in the middle of a world war. Thank you very much, Ana Valeria. Thank you very much. We are in the middle of a world war where we can't waste time chatting to start what we don't know what we're doing, or right? You're getting paid for it. We never know where a troll ends and a columnist basket begins. We never know. Internet is full of bots, right? So, like this, Vladimir Putin's speech is unequivocal. The position of the Chinese leadership is also unequivocal. Iran is not alone. There's no point in Donald Trump calling the president of Pakistan to talk, which is what's happening tonight, right? Picks and Dollars is talking about Picks people. Unlike these idiots, these bots, these guys I don't receive, right? I'm not monetized by this platform. So if you want to help, I'll even put it up. I always forget, but now I have a project. I need to buy AI credits to translate my videos. Normally, I don't spend a lot of money, but believe me, translating into artificial intelligence is expensive. And I want to do more of that. Right? Let's break the block given by the Portuguese language, right? This is exactly the pixel. I understand the reference. Pix is in Swiss franc, right? Yeah, we're at war. The world is at war. As I said in the video I made earlier, I am struck by the fact that the world is at war. EATV normalizes as if I had a little conflict, some kind of trouble between. Thank you, comrade, for letting me know, because then I open it. I explained that I have difficulty opening email, but knowing this, I will open Camera Dota. Because of my other previous professional, I have difficulty opening email. But knowing this, I will open Camera Dota, AAA Press is selling as if it is a conflict between Israel and Iran, lying as usual, as if everything is not right, everything is normal. There's nothing new happening here, but there are people, but it's right. But it's happening at this exact moment. At this exact moment it is. Iranian missiles are accepting Israeli air defense, right? As much as they have decreed AA total censorship, of course something always escapes. And these missiles can be detected from the 4th of Iraq, the Emirates, Lebanon. So yeah, let's go. The former analyst was born Hamak governed adverse to an Israeli false flag attack against the U.S. carrier. Man, I already said, even I will reiterate that sometimes the person didn't watch my previous video because it won't make the slightest difference. You know what? Imagine that will take away the commotion, because the Israelis did it in the Gold War that I could in 1973. They sank the American ship with the complicity of the United States to put the blame on the agitation. The Israelis have already done this in common with the Americans. Now the question is, in any case, if these aircraft carriers get close to the Iranian coast,
What will Iran do?
sinking them is unnecessary. It is to simulate that the Iranians dared to found the aircraft carrier. No, they will sink the American aircraft carrier. The 2 or 3 or 4, the number of American aircraft carriers. If you get anywhere near the Iranian book, no matter what it is, you're going to be sunk, right? Exactly 95% of Brazilians. So you have an idea of what is happening in a war, and that it is a world war because it already involves Russians. So it looks like the Iranian-Ukraine, which is a European country, Israel, Iran, which are Middle Eastern nations. We are already in a world war. That's the definition of a world war, countries from more than one continent. And we're already in a world war, right? Yeah, I've heard it from experts, great experts, people who really know what I'm talking about. That the state of Israel has ammunition for anti-aircraft defense for only 10 days, so actually 9, right? How today Iran just has to keep up the current pace, and then you hunt the duck, and then the United States will do what? They will despair and attack Iran. Honestly, exactly, we are commenting, I even showed the audio here, his camera, exactly about this. Iran cannot fall. And you have what he called the International Division of Labor, right? Iran comes in with blood, China comes in with steel, China comes in with gold, Iran comes in with blood, China comes in with gold, and Russia comes in with steel, right? Yes, it was February 20th. From 2014, which started the Third World War, comrade, that's right, on February 20, 2014, which started the Third World War, at that time I said, man, go to the Middle East. We'll expand to the Middle East. People, oh, cool, are you crazy? Yeah, sure, I'm crazy. I have videos from that time. There are posts of mine. There are posts of mine from 2012 saying, man, there's going to be war. Soon involving Ukraine, Russia, Europe, and NATO, and she will depart for the Middle East. My ex is there. Okay, my ex is there to prove that I've been saying this since 2012, right? 2022, sorry, since 2022. Actually, since 2020, right? Yes, since 2020, I have been saying there will be war, there will be war. Right? And there's a war going on, and now the United States, without the slightest economic condition, without the slightest engineering condition, without the slightest political condition, because the whole world is opposing the state of Israel, is willing, really follows the American leadership, will let their president commit the ultimate act of stupidity. We are technically in World War III. Camera. We're technically in World War III, and it's been 3 years. Most of the spies were actually Indians. They have Iranian spies, don't they? I see. They're Baraistas, right? Widows of the old regime, communists, liberals, and among the foreigners, the largest number are Indians, to a lesser degree, Afghans. Afghans, I think it's because of ideology, right? It is. The Taliban are deeply Sunni. What about the Indians? I prefer not to comment on what makes so many Indians act as Mossad agents. I reserve the right not to comment and to understand India as a very complex nation with 1.5 billion inhabitants, all kinds of people very well. I remembered my praise of those lines of yours. Thus began the confusion in the Middle East. Exactly. So that's how it is today. Comrade Modica met with Comrade Ramaphosa and President Lula exchanged ideas and such. But it's about this Indian issue. I'd rather not comment on why, right? There is a complexity that we have to take into account. It's the same thing as judging Brazil by the National Congress, judging Brazil by Bolsonaro, judging Brazilians by believers, right? For the Bolsonarenses. So anyway, I prefer not to judge India in particular at this time, at least India's position and official neutrality. And I will respect the Indian position and official neutrality. It's much better if I can be neutral than the opposite. Thank you very much, Comrade Abdul Ghaffar. Look, I'm very happy because I've always seen my humble channel as a Portuguese language channel. So I am very happy that I am having an audience in Mozambique. I know that I already have people in Portugal who see me and listen to me. That makes me very happy. Because I just take a break here. I always do. I have always viewed with deep love the thesis of Fernando Pessoa, of the Fifth Empire, the empire of language. My personal private dream and accomplished. But my dream is that one day all Portuguese-speaking nations will unite in a single confederation. Honestly, confederation of the Portuguese language. Anyway, the point here is that we've never been this close. When the carrier fires, what are the chances of it defending itself against a hypersonic? Not one of them is Solomon. There is not the most miserable chance. Aircraft carrier is too big, too slow. It's a piece of steel for the seaplane. Let's face it, it's not something that inspires much confidence, right? But Francisco Comrade, diplomacy is the art of talking to those we don't like. Talking to people you like is a conversation. The real of the bricks is Conviscot. Diplomacy is done with people you don't like. That's why diplomacy exists. To talk to those we don't like. Look, I don't know if it's BlackRock, if it's Palancar, but Palantir is the United States government. I don't know why you keep talking about Palantir, because Palantir is from the United States security agencies. Who controls Palantir is essentially the CIA IANSA, right? It's them, CIA IANSA, who control Palantir. Palantir is kind of a more comprehensive mix of thoracic Experian that has in the United States. It was created from initiatives of the CIAE, of the NCA. So Palantir is it's a Palantir. It's not a private company. Palantir is the deep state of the United States. It is the government. It is not necessarily a corporation. Black Hawk is a corporation. Palantir is the government. Does it act as a private initiative? In practice, issued from the United States Security Service? Not exactly. King is a happy person. You don't have to know. For example, even a guy who is super nice with practically all kinds of people, even with the German leadership. I remember when Xi Jinping had to talk to the Center Day. The discomfort was visible. The feeling that Xi Jinping, if you could stick his hand in his face, is very obvious. He's already stuck talking shit inside China. And Xi Jinping's comrades out of education having to keep quiet. But it was Nietzsche. His face was already tinged with hatred. You have to to talk to those kind of people, you know? It was easy to send Ursula von der Leyen, Helena Boterbach from China. But in this case, he was having the Pete conversation with Justin Interdot, talking shit to his face, talking nonsense, lying about the Uyghurs to his face. So Xi Jinping, knowing it was a lie, knowing Justin Interdot knew it was a lie, and you have to hear that kind of thing in his country, man. I'm sure comrade here wouldn't go through that. So I agree with you. It's a difficult life. Eliana is very welcome. It seems that the orange, the parrot there in the United States, is really exposed to going to war against Iran, and we are making it more or less clear here. Which is a profoundly stupid idea. Yeah, exactly. It was that meeting, right? It was that meeting. Comrade China ended. The meeting has nothing to do, no different from Jabur. I don't think Iran will fall. I just explained why I don't believe Iran will fall to Comrade Jabur. I believe there is a small chance. I say there's no chance. I explained at the beginning of the live that the economic and military difference between the two countries is brutal. In favor of Iran are given if the United States failed to win in 1968, a nation 300 times poorer, 20 times less populous, 10 times, less populous. Why now? He only had artillery, and it was Iran that counted on all his forgiveness. It was the United States that had all the strength. Now it's the other way around. The United States only has aviation. Iran has superior technology, a much more favorable economic situation, which will become even more favorable thanks to the massive support that China will give Russia in the same way as Iran. At the height of the Russian agony of supplying the drones that Russia desperately needed, Russia will now put all of its engineering and industrial capacity at the service of Iran, which indicates that it will probably finish massacring Ukraine in the coming weeks. Because to wage a war in Iran against the United States, Russia has to have the industrial capacity dedicated to Iran and the and. The best way to do this is to end Russia. I wasn't in a hurry. Now I'm ending the war in Ukraine. Images of Russia cheating Ukraine are increasingly common, right? They are increasingly common. Russia now, she knows that Bain-Marie, that was the scheme she was filling up. It's over. Let me look at the oil futures market price. How are you? What is the future price of oil? Look, unbelievably, it only rose 0.16%, but it's high. It is already at 76 USD and a half for the Brent type. It was just before the war and just over 60, right? It's 76 and a half, up about 20% since the start of the conflict. But if the bamboo really groans, it is obvious that Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, in practice, Iran has already closed the Strait of Hormuz, right? Only passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Who will Iran update? They say this B-52 is slow, and it's not immune to radar, right? He's not immune to radar. Right, he's not immune to radar. He's not immune to Solomon's camera radar. He's not immune to radar. That's propaganda. The Subas have even trolled him, tracking him live with his live radars on a live TV show. They located here, a B2. He's not invisible. His technology is very old. Things have evolved too much since then, and he's a very slow plane. It costs 1,000 kilos an hour. Its cruising speed doesn't reach 900, right? I was looking at salaries, about professions. I lived in Sao Paulo and took a lot of Uber. I did everything, lawyer and engineer. I just didn't see doctors on Uber. For now, you'll see Comrade. Just wait a little longer. Israel is looking like Iraq in 2013. Right now, the videos are coming out of heaven. My God. There's still Palestine and North Korea, Pakistan and North Korea, and Dad is Miranda. So guys, anyway, let's see what's going on right now, right? Are all the officers, soldiers in shelters, IAU, the officers and soldiers of Israel in shelters? You're not supposed to be fighting, are you? They are in shelters along with the population. This is how they will protect the population, by preventing the population from leaving the country. Putting soldiers in shelter, right? Yeah, it's put it in a point. It's important to just answer here, right? Which is the issue of aviation. It's Israeli. On the first day of the raids, when they attacked the treachery by surprise, there were 200 fighters. Yesterday it was 50. What happened to 150 others? That we have to remember that several Israeli bases were attacked. Nevatina was attacked, right? There were 200 and now 50. Where are the other 150? Perfect, Comrade Joseph. Iran releases the data. There are already more than 300, right? Deaths Israel lies. They are Brazilians. The country is in tatters, it is in ruins, and they insist that it is about 20. A certain teacher holding to attack this plane, and with this same good rally from the sky, that nothing can happen. She doesn't explode. She needs 11. What's 11? Atomic bomb. Imagine this is a bomb. I thought this here was the bomb. Inside here is a core, an explosive. Minimetrically put, the nucleus explodes, the nucleus between fission, and then you have the nuclear explosion. So if it falls, it doesn't explode. If it falls, it doesn't explode. There's a video today of Deaver himself screaming that he had no information. If I've seen this video, I've seen this video. That's exactly it, comrade. Just the right position. I believe doctors will turn, dentists will turn, lawyers will turn beggars. Artificial intelligence is there. You know what artificial intelligence doesn't replace? It doesn't replace the electrician. It doesn't replace a bricklayer. It doesn't replace the tile maker. It doesn't replace a firefighter, plumber, civil power, right? Artificial intelligence does not replace it. What's missing is a mark that he made a mistake in his life, right? Which was to trust the West and end its nuclear program. If he hadn't done this, he would still be alive and could do a lot for the change the world is in need of right now. But he trusted the West, right? He trusted the West, and the economy keeps spinning, comrade. The economy keeps spinning. The great extent of artificial intelligence. It only steals jobs from capitalism. Look at China. China is thriving. Artificial intelligence only steals jobs in capitalism, not socialism. Nobel himself, right? When was interviewed? Nobel himself. When a certain Nobel, I do not remember. The Nobel Prize in Physics, when he was interviewed, was what to do. The American TV reporter and asked what to do for artificial intelligence. No, you didn't end up killing jobs, and you answered in the can, socialism. Then the party insisted, yes, it's not just if he reaffirmed it's socialism in the face of artificial intelligence. The only solution to maintain employment is socialism. Now, socialism doesn't need half the lawyers in the world, right? Which is Brazil, right? Exactly rude. You refer me to 3,000 lawyers from no master builder. Man, you hire a foreman, you have to have influence, you have to meet someone who knows someone. It's almost like you have Where I lived, it was much easier. You have an audience with the mayor of the city, and no, the poor non-Catalan city is one of the richest cities in Goiás, has 120,000 inhabitants. Buenos has 23 automobile industries. Now, with this Chinese, it is a very rich city, but very rich indeed. And it's much easier for you to talk to the mayor than it is for you to schedule an hour with the master builder, right? So I'm going to tell you something. And the United States is a capitalist nation, right? Iran is socialist. But what about Marx? What is the basic distinction, people? Marx was an economist. These communist web people's problems are two. They are two very big problems. The first is that these idiots read Marx and Hegel is understood. And the second is that these idiots have no notion of economics. Marx was an economist. His definition of socialism, Robert Henry Strauss, in a brilliant book that I stay indesignated for not having had the correct disclosure. Robert Henry Strauss in a book called Its Modes of Production, and before the problematic, I'm even going to write, because one day you will find his book. Robert, despite his name, is Brazilian. He's American, right? Get out of those American movies. He was a professor at Unicamp and retired as a professor at PUC of Campinas, recently retired. He is elderly, but not so much. Robert Aristotle wrote a book called Modes of Production, Elements of Production, Controls the Means of Production. You don't have to have possession of property, just to have control. The state is socialist, so socialist Russia and Miranda is also why they are accounting, because the nations are not. He was Brazilian and American. You are very welcome. He was Brazilian and American. That's why he has that name. Robert Insal gives the impression that he is a gringo, right? But he's Brazilian, right? His family's American and all that. But anyway, the point here is that we are not too close to a war. We are inside a war. And this war is very Brazilian and American. She graduated, did a master's and doctorate at Unicamp, worked all her life as a professor at Unicamp. And when she retired from Unicamp, she was a professor at PUC in Campinas. I used to be a lawyer for a big construction company. I live well. I lost my job for Comrade of Heaven. Yes, it's taken by Lava Jato. It's exactly urban. It's there. The yellow message has already appeared for the first time. When the yellow message appears, it is because I am close to being dropped. Right? No, it's not going to be that, comrade. This Father Stone thing is bullshit. Einstein, who understood physics over the rest of things, talked a lot of nonsense. Einstein was a fucking racist, to be honest. Einstein was a fucking racist. Yeah, they already sent the message.